You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper than again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the second part of What If Deku Enters Monster Hunter. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of HanBaron on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. After Sig had demonstrated the weapons he specialized in and the people who wanted to learn from him had stepped forward, Fiagi was the next one up. Hello. You all know me as Fiagi. I'm more of a blade master myself. As are the rest of us. We specialize in getting up close to attack the monsters. I'll demonstrate my preferred weapons and explain how to use them. Fiagi then takes from her personal chest, a huge sword that looked like it was made of bone. This weapon is called the Great Sword. It is one of the heaviest weapons we hunters use, but it can also be the most rewarding to use. I'll demonstrate. With that she draws the huge blade and shows a few of the swings and combos that are possible with the sword. The blade is big enough that you could even use it as a shield. But it lacks the better coverage of a true shield. And it affects the edge of the blade each time you block with it. The charge strikes are the biggest draw for this weapon. It does have a bit of a problem being cumbersome to wield for some though. Fiagi says before demonstrating on a boulder in the training grounds. She charges up an overhead strike and cleaves the boulder in two. This amazes a few and they clap in response. Kendo thinks to herself, I may use my hands for it, but her strikes in a few ways aren't too different from my own fighting style. I may not be able to strengthen my quirk, but learning that could give me some other ideas for fighting. With that done, Fiagi moves on to her next weapon. Some of you may recognize this one. It's the long sword. With saying that she pulls out her favorite sword to demonstrate. It is a faster weapon and one of the easiest to combo with. And its greatest strength it's the spirit strike build-up and attacks. With that she begins her demonstration. A few of the students and Mike recognize her way of fighting from her battle with the Gyarados. And the barrage of hits against the targets in the practice ground intrigue a few of them. The big issue is that there is no guarding with this weapon. And it is a bit harder to evade with compared to some like the light bow gun or the dual blades. But the offensive advantages and support from others help with that. She says after taking her sword off and pulling out the heaviest offensive weapon of the hunters. The hammer on the other hand is a pure offensive type of weapon. Made for smashing instead of slashing. And more unwieldy in certain circumstances. To show this, Fiagi smashes apart multiple rocks and other targets and parts of the practice ground with little issue. Many compare its attacks to the great sword in movement. This weapon can knock out monsters if you hit them in the head at just the right moment. The stun hits and the pure power are what draw many to this weapon. She goes on to explain that the main problems with the weapon is that you have to be close to use it, and you have to time some of your strikes just right. With that done, and Sato and Kirishima thinking that they may have found their weapons, Fiagi moves on to the support weapon she prefers. This may look similar, but it serves a very different purpose. This is the hunting horn. Aside from some smash attacks, it has a function that can greatly aid your team. Joerger, do you mind helping? At the man's affirmative, he pulls out his lance to demonstrate and Fiagi preps her hunting horn. They see the impacts from Joerger's attacks on a target in the grounds. Nothing big but still impressive. Then Fiagi starts blowing her horn and Joerger demonstrates again, this time leaving bigger impacts on the new target. The hunting horn in many ways is a support weapon that can strengthen the team you are with. It can even promote healing for certain notes hit during the recital mode. You still get some impact, but you can't knock out or daze a monster as easily, compared to the hammer. With her demonstration done, she asks who would want to learn. Kyoka steps up with present mic, both wanting to learn the hunting horn. After that Sato, Kendo, Shoji, Shishida, Hitoshi, and Yui come up hoping to learn from Fiagi. I'm surprised, man. I thought you'd want to go with her after seeing her hammer attacks. Tetsu tells Kirishima. Who responds with, I did at first, but the way the Jaeger guy seems to fight looks more up my alley. Well, it's a good thing I'm demonstrating next. As you all know, I'm Jaeger. My specialty are the defensive weapon types. And I'll show a bit more with this weapon I already have, the lance. Jaeger draws the weapon but doesn't feel the need to demonstrate it again. He goes on to say that lancers often mix in evading as well as blocking for combat to make the most of what they can do during a fight. In many cases we can use the weapon to cover for others who are in danger, as some of you saw when I fought the Barroth. The weapon also deals a fair amount of damage and there is a strong counter-stab option. The biggest drawback is that we don't have the most variety to our attacks. We make up for that with a strong defense instead. At hearing that and thinking back to his mentor Fat Gum, Kirishima thinks he's found the weapon he wants to use. But the next one is what Tetsu like more. This is one of the simplest combos for defensive blade masters, the sword and shield. It is one of the fastest weapons to fight with and has a variety of elements to it when you have it crafted right. After Jaeger explains this, he shows a fast combo with the blade, followed by some quick block movements, and rolls to strike in a few more places quickly. It doesn't have the best defense and the damage over time isn't the best, but it is one of the most reliable weapons to use in a hunt. Monoma considers this a bit himself but thinks he'll wait to see one of the others. Last is my personal favorite, the gun lance. Much like the standard lance, it comes with a solid shield, but the lance itself is important. It has a cannon in it that gives you a shelling option at close range. Observe. After a few stabs and swings with the blade part of the lance, Jaeger fires a series of shots that blast through a target. He explains that the blade does more slash damage, and that the shots from the cannon eat away at the edge of the weapon. But if you can time your shots between a few stabs of the weapon, you can do lots of extra damage. With his explanation done, Jaeger asks who wants to learn to fight his way. Tetsu and Kirishima are the first to speak up, shouting how manly his weapons are given he takes hits as well as dishing them out. The next few who join are Kaibara, Ojiro, Kozai, and Juzo. With that done, Alcia talks next. She pulls out a weapon that confuses a few of them given that it is a sword and shield combination again. Didn't Jaeger already show that one? Mineta asks. Alcia smiles before saying, he did, but this isn't just a sword and shield. It's called the charge blade. She does a few slashes that look similar to the sword and shield, until she puts the blade into the shield, and it changes. She finishes the demonstration by bringing down the shield as an axe to cleave a wooden target in two. The charge blade works by building up energy in sword mode, which in turn can amplify your strikes in the axe mode. The charge built up is stored in files that allow you to unleash powerful varieties of elemental attacks. At hearing about the variety, Monoma thinks that the weapon might be more for him. The next demonstration is of the high-speed weapon of the hunters. The dual blades are the fastest weapons we hunters use and can often deal the biggest bursts of damage. This is thanks to the demon mode where the flurry of blows we produce is immense. At that she demonstrates both standard and demon modes. Most of the rest can't even follow some of her strikes in demon mode. Some are enticed to the weapon and others are wary of it. Alcia explains that, though it can deal a lot of damage, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. You have to be up close to inflict damage, and while you still deal damage, it eats through the edge of the weapon fast. The last weapon demonstrated is the SWCH axe, which Alcia compares in ways to the charge blade. The transformation is between the axe mod, which is the standard mode, and the sword mode. This weapon also uses files to store and unleash certain types of damage. The files and sword mode have to be used together, and it is something of a middle ground between the great sword and the long sword in terms of speed. She demonstrates this and the axe mode attacks which intrigues certain members. With that done she leaves the floor open for those who want to learn. Midnight, Kamakiri, and Ida both come up hoping to learn the dual blades given their speed. Tsuyu and Joerger decide to take up the insect glaive. Mina and Monoma like the charge blade, while Owaze and Bakugou take up the SWCH axe. The ones who are left are Toru, Aizawa, Mineta, Aoyama, Shiro, Tokoyami, Kurwaro, Ibara, Kinoko, Manga, Reiko, and Setsuna. This is when the handlers and a few others step in to offer if they want to learn other trades and the like. You guys don't have to fight on the front lines if you don't want to. A few like us go along with the hunters to make sure they have camps and food to return to. Or there are the researchers who are studying what the hunters find. One of your group, Koda was it, has asked to work with a few of the researchers we have here. We can show you how to make traps, tools, and the like to help your friends capture or kill monsters. Hana says with a big smile on her face. Aizawa likes some of that idea and asks more about the traps. As does Ibara, Shiro, Mineta, and Manga. While others like Setsuna, Aoyama, Kurwaro, Kinoko, and Reiko don't mid the idea of backing up their friends and going out to get them if they get hurt. With that done, each of the handlers finds someone who wants to learn their trade and gets to work. Most of the members from UA eventually find a weapon they like and with the instructor's blessing go on a few hunts after about a week of training. During that time, some of the teachers start to realize that there may be more application to what they have been learning here than they thought. We may not want to admit it, but I think we all know there is a war coming. Aizawa said to his colleges when they were heading out for a hunt. Something that Joerger said may apply more for us dealing with villains in the coming weeks. We may not be able to hold back. And in some cases, we may not be able to use our quirks against them. Rationally, we'd have to kill a lot of them. We may have to just start thinking of them as monsters. He says with a sad look on his face. The others think about it too. Acknowledge he has a point. For the longest time the world they lived in has made them think that quirks are the greatest thing to happen. But there are those who just want to use their powers with reckless abandon. They just become monsters who want to rampage as they please. And as heroes they can't let that happen. I think you're right, Aizawa. It may be time to take the gloves off and deal with them a bit more aggressively. Snipe says with a hint of remorse in his voice. With that the teachers decide to talk with All Might more about this when they get back. After a week and a half of training, a few of the students from UA had started to make teams with each other for hunts. A fair number of the Baku squad had all teamed up with Shiro acting as their handler. In contrast, Todoroki, Momo, Joerger, and Ida worked in tandem with Jiro, popping in to aid them from time to time with the hunts. Others that teamed up included Kendo and Tetsu working with Shota and Sato to break through the heaviest armors, with Ibara making traps and potions to aid them as a handler. While Mineta was hoping to team up with a few of the girls from his class, he ended up being the handler for Owaze, Kamakiri, Ojiro and Bondo. Ojiro for the most part felt out of place given he was the only one from Class 1A on their team aside from Mineta. But Toru had talked to him about being his handler for when he went on smaller one-man hunts. I may not be able to fight on the front line with you, Ojiro-kun, but I'm more than happy to have your back when you need it. Toru said with a big smile and a blush on her face. Ojiro was blushing a bit as well and was happy to accept her help during solo hunts, just using his sword and shield or even the long sword he had also taken to learning. A few of the students had also taken up some solo hunting as well. Most of them to gain the more specialized parts to make certain gear. Others had even tried to hunt some of the medium monsters in the area and get even better gear. A few had been successful like Bakugou, Ida, and Joerger. Others less so like Denki and Tetsu. But each made a set of strides in their own ways. Most of the adults worked together with Aizawa acting as the handler for them, with Mike using the hunting horn for support and battle, Ken using the lance, great sword, SWCH axe or charge blade depending on the situation. Snipe ended up both of the bow guns and swapped depending on the situation, and Nemuri used the dual blades or the insect glaive for more options in battle. They had quickly become capable hunters and had started to aid in some of the various investigations to areas like the Coral Highlands. They quickly proved their capabilities when they defended a research team in ancient forest and saved a few of their students from a Diablo's attack in the Wildspire wastes. So, the commander felt it necessary to entrust them with more. They were awed at the beauty of the Coral Highlands and the new kinds of creatures running around. They were not however expecting to see Izuku wandering around a few of these areas alone. He had apparently made some great strides as both a solo and team hunter while most of the rest were training. At the base camp, Aizawa noticed that Setsuna had taken it upon herself to be his handler while out in the field. He noticed that she still seemed nervous at all the sights and creatures she saw flying around. But considering she had been locked up in her room in fear for a few weeks, this was progress. "So why did you decide you wanted to work with Midoriya on these hunts, Setsuna?" Aizawa bluntly asked while their partners were out in the highlands. Setsuna had a bit of a surprised face but then blushed a bit before saying, "He reached out a bit more than the rest of us who were brought here had. They had all tried to help me. Hell, lots of them tried to help all of us who were scared. But the problem was you could easily tell they were terrified too. Even if they didn't say it, you could hear it in their voices." Aizawa looked down and nodded, remembering how, even as a pro-hero, he had panicked and practically hid himself away like the others. He was scared of the new world they were in even though they were in a safe place. Setsuna continued with, "But Izuku wasn't scared in the same way. Sure, he's scared of the monsters, who wouldn't be? But he's not gonna stop or let it hold him down anymore. And he is still willing to help or save people even if he has no clue what he's gonna do in the moment. He had to get a bit rough with me when I was running around trying to find a place to hide." She laughs a bit and Aizawa smiles a bit, thinking about the problem child of his class. "And he didn't let go when he caught me. I gave him a bloody nose and kept thrashing around, but he didn't let go when I tried to say I was calm. He just held me till I was ready to listen to him," she says while looking down with another smile and blush. Aizawa on the other hand keeps remembering all of the times Izuku put himself in harm's way for others. Even when he didn't need to, he would put others first. That selfless freak. Wait, did she call him? When did you start calling Midoriya by his given name? Aizawa asks Setsuna, who in turn straightens up and irks before coughing a bit. While he wants to press the matter more, they both see kill flares go up in the distance. One is Izuku's and it is near the northern camp, while the other is one from Konover in one of the lower highland sections. At that, the two handlers send messages back to Astria to send out collection groups. Izuku had only been tasked with tracking a few Legiana in the area, so Setsuna hadn't expected him to take one down. She whistles for a Menros to take her to the northern camp because she figures Izuku may be needing some patching up. She is not wrong, in fact, as not long after she got to the camp Izuku crawls in and is bleeding from a few different places. "What the hell happened?" she shouts while helping Izuku to the tent in the camp. Izuku is wincing as Setsuna starts bandaging some of his wounds. "Odagaron. Came out of nowhere while I was watching a few young Legiana. Did manage to take it down though. It'll make some good weapons and armor for later," Izuku says while drinking a potion. At hearing that, Setsuna grabs Izuku and slaps him once before berating him with, "Are you crazy? You're more concerned about the weapon or armor you could make rather than the fact you're bleeding right now." Izuku is a bit shocked at this outburst, let alone the slap to the face, and is more confused when Setsuna just hugs him and cries a bit. She tells him why she chose to work with him almost exclusively. "It's pitiful, I know, but I've been hanging on to you a bit because of not only the good you've done for me and everyone, but also, because I felt like you could be the one to lead us all out of some of this world and mess we are in." Izuku realizes she is dealing with either an inverse of Nightingale syndrome or possibly White Knight syndrome. For himself, while he may want to help and save her, Izuku knows that it could lead to more problems down the road. So, decides to talk to Kendo when they get back to town. Because that isn't the kind of hero he wants to be. On the way back, Setsuna doesn't want to leave Izuku for too long, saying he's still a bit hurt. He then tells her, "I'm fine, okay. I need to talk with the commander for a bit." While it's not uncommon for a Odogaron to be in the Coral Highlands, this one seemed more interested in attacking me rather than the other prey around. Setsuna realizes he's right and decides to go talk with a few of the older handlers about the matter. When she's gone, Izuku does report to the commander about the matter, but then he catches Aizawa, Kan, and Kendo to talk with them about Setsuna. I had wondered a bit when we were talking at the camp earlier. I thought it was a bit strange, but also that it could just be a crush or similar. But this is more unsettling. Aizawa said before Kendo mentions that she had noticed Setsuna looking at Izuku quite a bit and just thinking the same. Ken on the other hand notes that, a lot of this problem comes back around to the trauma she's experienced. I've noticed young Koda isn't much better. But in his case, he's chosen to throw himself in the research and study side of things with this world. If only Inu was here. He'd spend some time with each of them to try and help them out of the problem. After they had talked for a while, Izuku decided he would go on an extended hunt and survey of the Coral Highlands and the Rotten Vale. But without Setsuna. I'll talk to Aoyama and see if he's up for a trip to a few of those places. Or maybe Kanako for down in the Vale. All the mushrooms and stuff down there might be right up her alley. The others nod and Kendo says that she'll talk to and take Setsuna out on a few other hunts with her group. Saying that it might do her some good to work in a few more areas that are slightly safer. Kan and Aizawa also agree to talk with her to try and get Setsuna to open up more to others. With the plan set, Izuku goes to find his new handlers and head out for the research base. When Kendo confronts Setsuna the next day and talks to her about going out with her and Tetsu for some Class 1B bonding, Setsuna is a bit hesitant at first. I might check with Izuku quick. See if he'll wait for a while. About that. Look, can we talk in our room for a minute? Kendo says and leads Setsuna to some of the small apartments a few of the UA members had been allowed to move to. Most of them still paired up like Setsuna and Kendo, but some like Bakugou and Izuku had their rooms to themselves. When Setsuna has stepped in, Kendo locks the door quietly, before sitting down and talking to her friend. Okay, you may not like what I'm about to say, but Midoriya has already left. This makes Setsuna go wide-eyed, and before she can stand up again, Kendo puts both hands on her shoulders and stops her. You and I are not going anywhere, and I will hold you down if I have to. For now, I need you to calm down. Take a deep breath and listen to what I have to say. Setsuna gives Kendo a look of anger, but also remembers she is one of her closest friends. So, she breathes a bit before Kendo is willing to ease up on her. You need to talk to us a bit more than you have been. And you need to let all of us help you, not just Izuku. We hadn't thought much of it since you were going through a lot. More than the rest of us, to be frank. But that doesn't change the fact you are not only putting too much on Izuku, but you are also still running away and hiding a bit. Setsuna wants to rebuff what Kendo is saying, but her friend presses on with saying that she should spend some time with a few others. Me and a few of the others from Class 1B were planning an extended hunt anyway. Izuku and the teachers have a special mission from the commander. So, he'll be fine. You don't have to worry about him for now. For now, you need to focus on yourself and frankly need to come back to all of us. Heck, we could even make the trip a 1B girls trip. Well, for the most part. What do you say? Kendo asks with a concerned and compassionate look on her face. Setsuna goes over the matter in her head a few times before realizing she has a point. She does still want to go to Izuku, but she is willing to wait a bit to deal with the matter in front of her. Okay. I guess it would be good to see you guys more than just a bit in town. Sorry, I've been really distant. Setsuna says, and Kendo forgives her. Before Kendo planned to confront Setsuna, she talked with a few of the others of their class. Ibra had volunteered to watch over Setsuna in the evenings to make sure she didn't try to run back to town or to try and find Izuku. Speaking of Izuku, he had talked with Kinoko and Aoyama about the extended hunts to the Coral Highlands and the Rotten Vale the day before Kendo stopped Setsuna. Kinoko nods a bit before saying, it's probably a good idea to have Setsuna spend time with some of the others for a while. This whole ordeal hasn't been easy. Mademoiselle, it would probably do her some good in the long run. On the other hand, I'm looking forward to working with you again, mon ami. Aoyama says to Izuku with a smile. Izuku smiles back at them and goes over the plan he has in mind for the next week or so. Aoyama, you might want to stay up in the highlands while Kinoko and I check a few things in the Vale first. I know you're fairly good at hiding and sneaking a bit, so maybe you could scout a few areas without attracting too much attention. Most Odogaron live in the Rotten Vale, so we need to check and see if there has been a change to the home regions first. We'll spend a couple of days down there and then head up to the highlands to compare notes. Sound good? At an affirmative, all three whistled for a Menrose and took off for their destinations. Sorry, Setsuna. But you need different help than what I can do right now. Itsuka POV. I wasn't sure at first if Setsuna would be willing to let us all in again. But she's getting better. We've been out here for a few days and things are looking up. I decided it would be better if we had more of the girls for this. Kinoko is an exception, but that is only gonna be for a few days. Midoriya got in contact and said the two had found something interesting in the Rotten Vale and he has to follow up on it in the Coral Highlands. Well, whatever the case, he's got his own mission and hunts to do. For our group, however, we have Setsuna and Ibra acting as our handlers while we hunt. Rei had decided to take up the bow, as well as learning the handler skills. Pony has usually got me covered with her light bow gun, while I fight up front with either my great sword or the hammer. Yui on the other hand chose to learn 3 different weapons. Her favorite being the long sword, but she is also quite capable with the hammer and hunting horn as well. We may not have as much in terms of defensive skills, but we work well enough that it isn't much of a problem. The target, or rather targets, of our hunt the last couple of days have been all of the medium-sized monsters of the ancient forest. I've been planning this for a while before we each try to hunt some of these medium monsters solo. And after that, and we've each gained some good new gear and weapons, we're gonna try for both the Rathian and Rat Halos. A few others have made attempts and been successful. Midoriya and a few from Class 1A had managed it, as had some of the others from our class. Though Setsuna had a funny story from that. Apparently Midoriya had tried to take on the Rat Halos solo and ended up in a bit of a problem. He had chased the beast up to its nest and was doing okay. At least until the Rathian had showed up. It was at that moment, I guess, he decided to pull a dumb desperate move and collapse the dam above the nest that held a lot of water. Unfortunately, it didn't work as well as he had hoped. Instead of it just knocking the 2 top beasts down to the ground, Midoriya got caught in the wave and was washed through a lot of branches. When I found him, he was hanging upside down in a tree with no pants and his gear scattered everywhere. It took him 5 minutes before he even realized most of his gear was torn off. Setsuna said with a big smile. After a day of us tracking and running around, it was nice to have all of us talking around the campfire. I decide to share a story of my own to keep the mood light. That's almost as bad as what happened to me and Tetsu. We were in the Wild Spire Wastes going after a Kulu Yalu and Barioth when all of a sudden, a Rathian came out of nowhere and killed the Kulu we had been chasing. Tetsu, being the short-tempered person he is, starts yelling about the kill we lost, and the Rathian noticed us. Tetsu wasn't sure what to think at first, and I was panicking a bit in my mind, when he suddenly shouts, "A smart man knows when it's time to run like a little bee," and just grabs my arm and we bolt. I'm just laughing at that memory, as are a few of the others, but that wasn't even the funniest part. So, I continue with, "Oh, it gets better." We started running and slinger grappling around the area to get away, and until we reached the quicksand and spire area. Tetsu gets the brilliant idea to try and copy what he saw Joerger do the first day we wound up here. He stands in front of a spire and fires a pair of shots from his slinger at the Rathian. The problem is that it's a flash shot which blinds both him and the beast on accident. He ducks out of the way as best he can, but doesn't realize that he's rolled right to the quicksand pit, and the Rathian crashed and rolled the same way. I was grabbing him right as it rolled right at us, and we end up crashing down into the Diablo's den. With not only said beast there but both me and Tetsu get tangled up with each other. My tips in his face and his belt busted with his pants around his ankles. As I'm finishing that part of the story, everyone is rolling laughing at the thought and visual image of that happening to the two of us. Not either one of our best moments. Luckily the Rathian and Diablos had gotten distracted fighting each other, so I could help Tetsu with his pants and we could eventually get out of that problem. Of course, I didn't realize till later and Tetsu had tried to tell me, but the back of my bone coil armor was torn off. So, he was blushing for a while after trying to tell me he could see my peach. I eventually got the message. Although I'll admit it is hard to look him in the eye after all of that. As I finish up my story, I look around at all of my sisters in Class 1B. We may not have everyone here just yet, but it is good to have most of us together. Some good news came the next day with Kinoko showing up to our camp. Hey girls. Great to see you. Setsuna. It's good to see you again. Kinoko said with a big smile on her face. Setsuna is also happy to see her but asks where she had been. This had me a bit worried, but I guess Midoriya and her had worked out a plan. Koda and I got sent to the research base not too far from the Coral Highlands. Since we've been focusing on research more than the rest, the head of the 4th Fleet thought it would be a good match. She showed me a bunch of mushrooms. To emphasize that, she opens her pouch and brings out a bunch of mushrooms none of us had seen before. I'll take her aside later and ask what has been happening with Midoriya, as he and the teachers had a pretty dangerous mission by their accounts. Setsuna surprises a few of us by mentioning that she had learned the basics of the bow gun from Sig. I'm not planning to hunt anything anytime soon, and really I don't want to leave the camp too much. But I want to at least have something to cover Izuku or you guys if necessary. I nod, just thinking this is at least something of a step. Before we head out to hunt our targets, I catch Kinoko and ask what has been happening in the other areas. Midori found something. Some of the corpses of Legiana down in the vale had some weird mushrooms growing. Not only that, but we found evidence of an ebony odogaron. And not just one. This could be an issue going forward. I nod at that and think a bit more of what else they could have found there. But for now, I've got an Anjath to hunt. Bakugou POV. As much as I want to beat that DMN Deku, I know I've still got a ways to go for that. I heard the BSTRD had been given a special mission from the commander. Something about aggressive odogaron or whatever they were going after hunters. It really pisses me off because he's been put on the same level that the teachers are at. Though I guess it isn't too surprising. He took the initiative to learn about this world and how to fight. The rest of us, especially me and half, couldn't get used to the fact we didn't have our quirks right away. Deku saw that he could learn a lot of new things here, while we were all stewing in our self-pity. Of course, I'll never tell the BSTRD that. Hey Bakugou. You're going the wrong way, man. The tracks go this way. I hear Kirishima shout. I shake my head and realize he's right and that I had been walking in the wrong direction. Damn it. Now Deku's messing with my... No, that's wrong. I'm just caught up in the same problem I had back after I failed the provisional license exam. But right now, we have a bigger fish to fry. Or rather beast to hunt. Right, I'm coming. The Diablos should be either sleeping or resting or whatever by now. So, we have to hit it fast. Yep, you and me can hit it first. With my lance and your glaive, we can make a big impact right at the start. To back the two of us up, Pikachu and Raccoon Eyes are gonna be hitting the thing with arrows and bullets. Apparently, Raccoon Eyes had decided to learn a few other weapons like most of us. Not sure how she could relate the bow gun to her quirk, but I'm betting Deku could. I may be able to make use of these guys, but nowhere near as well as Deku can with planning and strategizing. It's then we see the big horned beast after coming down a ridge. It's napping in the sun and we're about to give it a rude awakening. Okay, Kirishima, you set the first bomb by its head. I'll put the second by its tail. You two shoot the bombs once we're clear. And make sure to hit it and make sure to not miss. Got it. I say with a glare at the two of them. Pikachu is nervous but Raccoon Eyes doesn't flinch. Instead, she gives me a bit of a glare back before saying, "You just get ready to cut it. We'll stun it and open up the initial hurt." I don't give her the satisfaction of agreeing but I nod and say we need to move. Once the bombs are set, Raccoon Eyes hits the first bomb no problem. It takes Pikachu 2 shots but I'm willing to give that a pass. He undershot rather than missed completely. So, he just needs to work on gauging the range more. But the big guy is mad and awake after the bombs go off. So Kirishima and I get started. He's focusing on the legs and I go for the belly. I may not be able to move like I'm used to, but I can make it work. After a few hits, with the ranged duo getting in their own shots, the Diablos ups its attack. Kirishima manages to take a tail swipe pretty well, but I get basically run over by the thing charging. And while I didn't ask for the help, Kirishima and Pikachu managed to cover me pretty well. With Kirishima getting in front and stopping another big hit from striking and Pikachu landing a flash slinger shot to blind it. I get back up and start laying into the wyvern more. I even manage to get all 3 boosts at once. With that I start almost moving and fighting like myself with my quirk. Before the beast can try to get away, I vault up to its back and stab and slash it a few times. Once it's on the ground, all 4 of us get a few hits in the belly before it gets back up. Once it does though, Kirishima surprises me again by grappling to its face and using a couple of attacks and then a bomb steers it toward the rock wall, and it rushes into it headlong. Nice job Kirishima. Come on you two. Let's finish it. And finish it we do. With Pikachu landing a few heavy pinpoint hits to the head and Raccoon Eyes hitting the belly with some ice ammo she bought, and me and Kirishima getting in more hits all along the body. It isn't long before the beast falls. All right. We did it. Kirishima shouts in victory. Raccoon Eyes goes up and starts hugging him while me and Pikachu shake our heads. I send up a flare to pick up the kill so we can get some new armor hopefully. Maybe we'll each get our own chances to take down some big wyverns ourselves. Izuku POV. This is definitely not good. What I had found earlier in the week, down in the Rotten Vale told me that there was at least 2 ebony Odogarons in the area. But as I've been poking around the Coral Highlands, I'm noticing that it may not just be them that have started encroaching. There have been lighting scorch marks in certain areas of the highlands and I saw explosive marks down in the vale. None of the beasts that I have encountered before seemed like that. Aside from those though, I could have sworn I saw rat halos flying above the highlands. But from most accounts they don't head up this way at all. So, what? Mon ami. Izuku. Snap out of it. You're on one of your mumble sprees again. Aoyama says as we're sitting in the northern camp. I look up and realize that I had been thinking all of that out loud. Sorry Aoyama. Just a little confused by what we found and seen here. Let alone what Aizawa mentioned their group had found in a different part of the vale. The whole strange gouge marks on the upper levels of the vale. Ones that shouldn't be there. I'm worried we may be dealing with something extra dangerous. I say before starting to eat some of what he had prepared. Aoyama hums a bit before saying, I agree. It does seem like something strange is going on and that the monsters around are more riled up. Or rather getting more riled up. I actually had to fire the bow gun I had brought just in case and use up all of my flash slinger shots just to get away from the Ruffinos and Gajulaka. I nod a bit and hum wondering if there is something else making them all nervous. By the way, any progress with Joerger? Or are you focusing on Tokage instead? Aoyama says with a straight face. At that I almost choke on my food before blushing up a storm. Wait what? Joerger and Setsuna. Why do you bring them up? Setsuna. Guess you're going for her right now. I realize I had been with her enough I was more comfortable with it. And when she started calling me Izuku, she asked me to call her by her given name. But to move Aoyama past that thought, I told him some more of what happened with Setsuna and I. He nodded a bit and I'm guessing he wanted to go on the romance mentality a bit more but was willing to let it slide for now. I changed the subject telling him where I plan to look and search around more. The central area is where there seems to be more other monster marks around. Maybe since it's right in the middle, the beasts feel it is a decent spot to survey the land from. But with my idea for where I'm going to look into set, we both head for bed to be ready for the next day. The next day, once I get to the central area, I notice that there are some new marks on the ground. But they don't make any sense. What are Rat Halo's claw marks doing in the coral highlands? They usually stick to the... As I'm saying that I hear and feel something coming up behind me. I turn slowly and see what looks like a unicorn standing there. I'm not sure what is going on and I'm about to grab my longsword, when the beast looks up and we see a blue rat halos coming down at us. It charges at the two of us, but we get out of the way in time. I don't know what it is doing here but it clearly wants a fight. It starts attacking the unicorn, which responds by unleashing a lightning bolt from its horn. The rat halos is a bit stunned from that, so I take the chance and attack it a few times with my sword. The wyvern takes notice of me finally and responds with a set of attacks. I manage to dodge most of them, but I get hit by the poisonous tail and knocked away. Right when I think it is about to attack me again, the unicorn rushes it and stabs it with its horn before shocking it. I'm not sure if it is helping me, or if it is just convenient timing but I'm thankful, nonetheless. I drink an antidote before sending up an assistance flare. Hopefully, some hunters see it. But I don't have a ton of time to worry about it now. The rat halos is on me again, this time firing off a fireball. I avoid it and take a few slinger shots after grabbing some sticky ammo it had dropped. Then the unicorn gets the beast's attention with a line of lightning shocking it for a ways. The beast has fallen, so I take the chance and rush it with a spirit-enhanced combo before it can get up. But it isn't enough and when it gets up, it does a spin swipe with its tail and knocks me back to a different area. And of course, I'm poisoned again. It follows this up by rushing at me, but I grapple to its face and stab it in the eye a few times before setting a bomb on its face. That of course blasts me back as well, but I've got some distance now and the rat halos is disoriented. I manage to take an antidote pill to stop the poison, but then the unicorn is not too far away and seems to be charging up a big attack. When it unleashes the strike, I'm knocked back again and pass out while falling over the edge of the cliff. It is a few minutes before a few hunters show at the central area where the fight between Izuku the Azure Rat Halos and the Kirin took place. They see the telltale signs of the fight and Aoyama shows up a few seconds later. He had been scouting some of the upper regions of the highlands, near the Legiana nests when he saw the flare. "Please be alright Mon Ami," Aoyama says as he meets the hunters. "Excuse me. Is there a green-haired hunter near here?" "Unfortunately, Aoyama, we don't know where he is." The one who spoke up is Fiagi, who steps up and tells Aoyama what they had found. Including taking him to see the Azure Rat Halo's corpse. From what we could tell, Izuku most likely got dragged into a turf war between this Rat Halos and what we assume was a Kirin. He seems to have put up a good fight, given the slash marks on the Rat Halos, but the Kirin must have knocked him away. We have no idea where he could be. Aoyama is panicking at the thought that his friend could be lost or dead. Before he can start saying they need to send out a search party, Fiagi tells him that they already have. And we have a few other feline tribes looking as well. Even if we only find a body, we will find him. He is still alive. He won't let this stop him. Aoyama says with an uncharacteristically serious face. Fiagi is surprised but nods and says they have to head back for now. The word came down the day Izuku faced off with the Azure Rat Halos, that he had gone missing in the highlands. All of Class 1A were worried and volunteered to join the search for him. But most were told not to. Why not? Why can't we go looking for Deku-kun? Joerger shouted at a meeting with some of the teachers and their fellow students. The commander just told her that, most of you aren't at a level that you can navigate and deal with some of the creatures in the Coral Highlands. Especially if what Izuku had found is correct. Aoyama. At a nod to the French-speaking classmate of theirs, he stood and told them what he and Izuku had found. We found evidence of a dangerous subspecies of Odogaron in the highlands and Rotten Vale. It is more aggressive than the standard and we had reason to believe that there may be more than one. That matches up a bit from some of what we found in a few areas too. Snipe commented. They too had seen new species wandering a few different areas. Even some in the ancient forest and wildspire wastes commented the same. Itsuka being the first, saying, I don't know what it was but there was some sort of. Like a flying black panther rushing through the forest in places. It was so fast I could barely keep up with it. A few veteran hunters knew what it was and told the group they had spotted a Nargacuga. This worried a few of the researchers that a dangerous species was moving through the ancient forest again. Bondo and his group had a different report to give. We spotted a beast that, well frankly it looked like a horned gorilla. It fought a Rathian and did some decent damage before it. Well, it looked like it died due to poison since it took a hit from the Rathian's tail. Another set of nods from the veterans before explaining about the Rajan. Setsuna on the other hand was panicking about the fact that Izuku was looking for and dealing with monsters that scared even the veteran hunters. Why didn't he let me help? I could have backed him up. I could have. No. I haven't been in the best place for a while. I'm guessing he set up the whole hunting trip with Itsuka and the other girls to help me recover more. He knew I was, well, clinging, and while he was okay for a while, I guess he knew it wouldn't help long term. While Setsuna is coming to terms in her mind on what happened the past week, the veterans are finishing plans to search for Izuku. As well as recommending that the rookie hunter stay in town for a while. Y'all should just wait here for a while. These beasts aren't easy ones to deal with. Even just in passing. We'll find Izuku. Don't you worry about that. Sig said when he could tell that the group from UA were planning to go out searching. Aizawa though had other plans. That's fine for the students, but I'm not staying put while one of my students is lost out there. He said with a determined look, which was mirrored by the rest of the teachers. Sig and Elsia weren't sure, but Joerger was the first to voice his own opinion. At least you've stopped worrying about useless things. We can probably take one of them with each search party. They know the kid better than we do. So, if he's alive he may leave signs that they may recognize. Most were surprised by Joerger agreeing with the UA group. He had a track record of looking down on or being extra tough on most of them. With that piece given, the commander gave his orders. First I want search parties moving through the highlands and the vale. If Izuku is alive, he'll be in one of those areas. Second, and no offense to the UA group but, I want lower-ranked hunters to stay close to Astra. And third, we need a few of the other experienced hunters to look into the monsters that we haven't seen for a few years. There may be a pattern to it. With his orders given, the hunters dispersed and set out on their missions. Well, this bites. Just when we had finally managed to make an impact and change in our new lives, we get stuck here and waiting on others to do the job. Bakugou complained loudly after the meeting. Most of his fellow students agreed but knew why it was happening. Ida even said, this is a matter we aren't ready for. Much like in hero work, sometimes you have to wait or leave a matter to professionals. They have greater experience here. So we should leave it to them. And as if sensing Bakugou's next complaint, Ida continued with, and they are only letting the teachers go along mostly as an extra set of eyes. I doubt they will be hunting much themselves. With that said, and as much as Bakugou wanted to say something else, Ida basically brought the matter to a close. For some though they knew there was going to be a few who wanted to try to find Izuku themselves. After 2 days of searching none of the search parties had found anything substantial. There had been some of Izuku's gilly mantle found in a part of the highlands. But it wasn't substantial enough for a clue of his whereabouts. It was around this time a few members of 1A and even some from 1B were going to search for their missing friend. Setsuna had been the first to confront Ochiko about looking for Izuku. No matter what everyone says, you're going out there aren't you? Setsuna said with a fierce look in her eyes. Ochiko was surprised and tried to cover it up but eventually relented. Yeah. I owe him a lot and he's one of my best friends. I'm not giving up even if some of the hunters think he's dead. I know he wouldn't give up. Aoyama was behind her when she said this and agreed wholeheartedly. Setsuna had a small smile at that and agreed with the two. He wouldn't stop to try and save or find us out there. So, we have to do the same for him. He pulled me out and was there when I was basically scared of my own shadow. I know everyone tried to help me as well, but he was the first to really make it stick. You know. To push and make sure I was gonna be okay. The two from 1A nodded and set up their plan. Since Aoyama and Setsuna had been to the highlands before, they would take the lead on the search. Setsuna brought in one more from her class to help search. Shishida may not have had much interaction with Izuku, but he still felt a bit indebted to him. He was the first to really see how we could live in this world. And he helped more than a few of us out of our issues. Even helped me and some of the rest out on the hunt too. So. Of course I'll help you, Joerger. We'll do all we can to find Sir Midoriya. With their team set, they just needed to find a time to slip away and head for the highlands. Koda had passed a bit of information to the four on a good way to get to the highlands. Every week or so, a transport flies out from the gathering hub at the top of the tree. It takes supplies to research base. If you get on that, they shouldn't know you're gone until it's too late. After that, it's up to you. With a nod and details of which boxes they could hide in, the four students from UA slipped away in the early hours of the morning. Once they had made it to the base, they caught a few Menros and got to the northern camp to start their search. Okay, let's move before too many people notice we're gone. Aoyama, you know the rough area where Izuku fell, right? Setsuna said, taking command of the situation. Aoyama nodded and led his team to central point of the highlands. Once there, they could get a rough idea of how some of the battle went down. Are you sure this will help Tokage-dano? The veteran hunters are sure to have checked here as well. What can we find? Shishida questioned as they checked the scorch marks around the area. Setsuna and Ochiko checked a scrap mark near a rock wall before the latter said, but we know Deku-kun. They probably thought he would have tried to get away as fast as possible. But if I know him, he would have tried to fight that blue rat halos for sure. Even if he had no chance. Setsuna provides her own thoughts from what she knows of the monsters, and how Izuku would do things. Given what it looks like in this area, the rat halos probably dive-bombed Izuku and they called it a Kirin. It's like an elder dragon. A smaller one but still an elder. At that mention, they were all nervous about the possibility of what could still be around. But Setsuna reassured her team with a few words. The Kirin is one of the more passive and peaceful elder dragons. We probably won't see it. While Setsuna trailed off as she was looking up at the top of a rock wall. The rest followed her gaze and saw it. A Kirin. Sparking and almost snorting around. Before they could react, the beast had jumped down and started sniffing the area. It didn't try to attack or intimidate any of them. Chustce chuil fate? Aoyama asked, but none of them understood. Dude, we have no idea what you're saying half the time. Pick a language. Ochiko said rather bluntly to Aoyama, who just face-faulted before going to a corner to pout. Shishida though asked the same question Aoyama did, just in their own language. What is it doing here? I'm not sure, but it almost looks like it is looking for something. Or someone. Setsuna said and decided to get back to looking into what happened to Izuku. She then noticed a scrap mark and a blast mark from what was likely slinger ammo. Check this out. I think Izuku had managed to knock the rat halos into this wall after getting hit. After that though, it looks like he was by the cliff's edge. Setsuna said, and then Ochiko noticed the likely position he was in. That depression and the way the dirt and coral are broke. I'm betting Deku-kun was on his back. He probably got poisoned by the rat halos at some point and needed to take an antidote. Shishida and Aoyama nod and look around more. The part they were missing was what happened next. All of a sudden the Kirin started charging up and releasing electricity all around it. The students recoil a bit and step back from the elder dragon. That is when Shishida gets an epiphany. The Kirin might have unleashed a blast that sent him flying. Everyone has been looking in different parts of the highlands thinking Sir Midoriya was knocked unconscious away from where the Kirin finished the fight. That or they figure he fell to his death all the way down to the rotten veil. Aoyama says bluntly, to which the two girls give him a death glare. Shishida coughs to get their attention again. What if he's just down in a hidden area of the highlands? With the winds in some of these places, even without a glider mantle you could be floated to certain areas. At that Setsuna and Ochiko have renewed hope of finding Izuku alive. While the four humans are exchanging a mutual nod of agreement and planning, the Kirin is sniffing the ground where Izuku had laid. All of a sudden it rears up and with crackle of electricity in the air it dashes off. While they don't know what the elder dragon was after, in their minds they thank it for giving them some hope. What they didn't know was that the Kirin was looking for something else related to the incident. Izuku POV. Ugh. I wonder if anyone got the license plate of the truck that ran me over. Maybe that sent me back to my own world. Pretty common in some old manga. But as I look around, I see the strange coral and plants of the coral highlands. So, I'm still in the hunter world. But where am I? And how long have I been out? I'm not sure why I'm asking these questions out loud, but I'm probably delirious. I shake my head a bit and feel a lot of pain through my whole body. Probably have a few broken bones. But given what my first year of high school has been like, that isn't too strange for me. As I'm sitting up, I look around and see more unusual sights. There is a bit of water moving down below the rocks I'm sitting on. It hurts to move right now, but I need to at least get my bearings and try to find out where in the highlands I am. Once I'm down I notice a bit of a trail along the water. Like something had been dragging its legs. I'm not going to worry about that for now though. Feels like I haven't eaten for days. I've still got my long sword and my armor is still intact, so that's good, I guess. I start walking through the strange cavern area and I notice more of the tracks as I'm walking. What could have made these? And am I really gonna have to fight it while I'm as beat down as I am right now? That would just about figure given my luck. As I'm walking though, I check over some of the rest of my gear. Of course, my slinger is busted so I can't send up a rescue flare. The grapple and line are broken as well, so I can't use that to climb. I'm going to have to find a different way out of here. After a few minutes I feel a rumbling under my feet. I look around and of course there had to be something here to attack me. An ebony odogaron is wandering around and looking for food. Strangest thing though. It looks like it's taken some serious damage already. And it spotted me of course. Without my ghillie mantle I'm not sure I can hide from it. Even though I'm hurting, I move as fast as I can to get away from the beast. The good news is that it can't move fast either. So, we both basically limping our way through the cavern area. And the world must hate me. Because as we're moving, some part of coral we are walking on breaks beneath us, and we fall into an arena-like area. Oh, that's just great. No choice but to fight after all, huh? I say as I draw my sword. Right as the odogaron is about to attack, a few rocks fall, injuring it more. Well, I'll take what I can get. Let's go, beast. Though I can't run more than in short bursts, I rush at the odogaron and cut it a few times along its side. It tries to swing at me with its tail, but I dodge it with little issue. I manage to get a few more cuts into it before I feel the spirit power build up in the sword. But that distraction costs me a bit. The odogaron gets a hit on me. As if I'm not hurt enough. Well, at least it didn't cut deep enough to bleed. As the beast is rearing up for another attack, I take some flash ammo in my pocket out and chuck it at its face. It may not have the slinger accuracy, but it still works to blind the monster. Now's my chance. I rush in and unleash the best spirit combo I can on the Odogaron before it recovers. With one last slash to its throat, the beast falls dead. Too bad I can't call for a pickup. I doubt most would believe I took this thing down. As I'm saying that, something else falls into the arena. Oh, you have got to be kidding me. Really? What's next? And just as I say that, the creature that fell in stands up. It's a Kirin. Of all things I could be stuck with, it had to be an elder dragon. Is it the same one that fought that blue rat halos? It might be. I notice a few cuts and gashes along its side. Similar to what I've seen Rathian and rat halos do to their kills. What's it doing here? Did it just fall by chance, or is it? And I'm about to start on of my ramble and mumble sprees. The Kirin though snaps me out of it as it falls again after standing for a few seconds. I shuffle over to it and get a better look. I wouldn't have thought that an elder dragon could be poisoned or felled by something like a rat halos. But I guess it was an unusual variation of it. Guess the poison was stronger and the Kirin probably didn't treat it or eat any antidote herbs. I don't think my antidote will work at this late stage. So that begs the question again, why is it here? As I'm looking at it, I notice the creature charge up its lightning again and send out a shock. It is standing once again, but this time it looks like it wants to fight. I'm not sure why though. Unless, you know, you don't have much time left. And you would rather go out fighting than just die from the poison. Right? I say to the Kirin as I draw my sword again. It doesn't give any kind of acknowledgement to my question, but I can feel its intent. Well, that's just great. 2 fights in one day for the already injured me. I don't know if I can really win or anything, but I'll give the beast as good of a send-off as I can. I don't know how long we've been fighting, and I don't care. The Kirin's breathing has become more labored than before, and I can feel it is on its last legs. I'm not much better, but I can muster up one last set of attacks. Before I either pass out or die. Not sure which I'm closer to. The Kirin rushes at me and I end up thinking back to the first training at UA against Katsuki. I know exactly how this is going to go. Right as it is about to hit, I move to the side and slash along the side. Before following up with a few more slashes. It isn't long before the Kirin collapses, taking its last few breaths. With the last breath, it sends up a huge bolt of lightning. Not sure what that was for, but I guess it was its way of saying goodbye. Good fight. I need another nap now. I say before I pass out. It is getting into the 4th day of everyone searching for Izuku's second for the students, when those searching the highlands hear and some see a large bolt of lightning arc out. For most they have no idea what it was about. For others, that bolt. It's just like the Kirin's. Could that be where Midoriya? Aoyama asks as the others look where it came from. The rest aren't sure but decide to go on that hunch. As they are using the Menros to fly closer to the area, Setsuna spots something below them. Look down there. Is that the Kirin? They all look and see the Kirin running and jumping across the parts of the coral. They had thought it was the Kirin that had sent up that bolt, but now they all are not so sure. Achiko speaks up asking, maybe there was more than one. That might have been the one we saw, and it was looking for the Kirin that fought that rat halos. But why though? None of them have an answer as they make it to a clearing in the clouds and mists of the highlands, landing next to the Kirin at a cliff's edge. As some more of the clouds clear they see what is in the depressed area of the coral. A sharp-sided area with a few things inside it. First, they see what looks like a dead Odogaron, but it is black in color. That's an ebony Odogaron. It must have wound up here on its way to the rest of the highlands. Aoyama exclaims before they look deeper. And they're all gathered see what they have been looking for. With just a light charge of electricity, the Kirin leaps off first heading toward the dead Kirin on the ground. The students aren't too far behind it and grapple down and see Izuku on the ground. Setsuna and Achiko are the first to him and listen to his chest and mouth. And hearing a faint pulse, they both break down in tears. He's alive. He's alive. Setsuna shouts first, while Ochiko notices he is bleeding and probably hurt in quite a few places. So she starts stripping his armor off to treat him. Aoyama though is also crying happy tears that his friend is still with them, and Shishida while not crying is overjoyed that they found Izuku at last. And with that he sends up a flare to let the other hunters in the area know where they are. While they are happy that Izuku is alive, the Kirin has instead started sniffing and placing its head next to the other Kirin. I think I have an idea on what may have happened now. I guess that dead Kirin was the one at the Azure Rat Halos fight. Probably got hurt and poisoned and eventually found its way here. Our Kirin on the other hand was either its mate or related in some way. And it was searching for the other one. Setsuna said with a sad look on her face. The other were saddened as well but thanked the Kirin for showing them the way. Setsuna even came up to it putting a hand out to pet the elder dragon. Thank you for giving us some hope. And I thank your partner there, for showing us the way. She doesn't know if the dragon understood her, but it places its head in her hand before turning and bounding off. Once it has gone, the other hunters arrive. As well as the teachers from UA. While most of them want to lecture all of the students about the fact they were out there, they are mostly preoccupied with the fact that Izuku is alive and that he took down an ebony Odogaron and a Kirin. All while he was probably dealing with multiple broken bones from what you are saying, Uraraka. Alcia said while the rest were checking out the kills. Ochiko and the rest of the students were on their knees Saiza style getting a lecture when the hunter brought this up. Most likely yeah. When we got here both of those monsters were dead. And Deku-kun was unconscious. He had a lot of broken bones but that has never stopped him before. Also, we may have had some help from a Kirin as well. At that most of the veterans and teachers were confused until they told the story of how they found the Kirin investigating the same area. Suppose we shouldn't be too surprised. There's a lot we don't know about elder dragons. But for now, let's get Green Bean their back and healed up. Also, I think we should call these kills his. They may have been injured, but so was he. And yet he still came out on top. Sig said with a smile. The rest of the hunters agreed, and when the balloons from the 4th Fleet came in, they loaded up and settled in Izuku for a long healing process. Once they were all back at Astria, there were multiple people gathered to see if Izuku was still alive. As well as to see the 2 monsters he had apparently hunted, while not only injured but were impressive species of monsters as well. Are you kidding me? That DMN Deku beats not just 1 monster but 2 while having multiple broken bones. And one of them was AF Elder Dragon. How am I supposed to catch up with that? Katsuki yells at the top of his lungs as Izuku's kills are brought into the trade yard. While the other hunters are just looking at him like he's crazy, his fellow student are both relieved to see Izuku alive and impressed that he managed to take down those impressive monsters on his own. Well, he has always embodied the idea of plus ultra. Let alone the fact he's taken down monsters and fought multiple times with all of his bones broken. Guess this shouldn't surprise us. The other students say as they are looking at the kills and seeing Izuku wrapped up in multiple bandages. Though Mineta and Kaminari are both crying tears of BLD as they see the unconscious Izuku being cared for by both Uraraka and Setsuna. Come on. Why is it always him? Kaminari shouts first. Mineta wants to say something but can't come up with what he wants to say at that moment. Before he can though, the commander comes in to break up the crowds. Alright, that's enough. Give them some room, people. And head back to work, some of you. Uraraka. Tokeichi. How is he doing? The 2 girls look up and Uraraka speaks up first. He's got a lot of broken bones. His arms look fine for the most part, but I'm betting he's got some minor fractures. Same for his legs. Setsuna then adds that, most of the damage seems to be his ribs and head. To a point at least. I'm betting all of his ribs are broken. We gave what first aid we could when we found him, but As she trails off, Shishida comes in and says that the 4th Fleet MSTR had done some extra treatment on the way to Astria. The commander nods before checking Izuku over once himself. Well, we had been planning to move him to one of the better rooms anyway. I'll see ya take Izuku to the new room for him. I'll have someone bring up his other gear later. Understood, Commander. You girls can come too. Let's get him somewhere comfortable. With that, Izuku is put on a stretcher and gently carried to his new home. When they reach the apartment, the girls are in awe at the size and view of the place. Man! And I thought our dorms at UA were nice. This is a whole new level. Ochiko says as they set Izuku on the big bed. Once they've made sure he won't bounce around, Alcia notes how the girls are looking at him. With a sigh she says, you girls can stay for a while, but the doctors will be here later to make sure Izuku will be able to recover. So, I want you to stay out of their way and for you to head to your personal rooms. At the mention of their rooms, the girls are confused. Neither of them had moved out of the dorm areas most of them were staying in. It was at that Alcia decided to tell them that the commander had decided to promote them, as well as Shishida and Aoyama. You guys showed guts, skill, and determination. A few figured you deserved to move up a bit more. I know some like Izuku, your teachers, and that bakugou kid had moved up to the apartments. But you haven't. Or hadn't earned it. So, we figured you deserved to move up a bit. The girls are surprised but do agree. When they get there, Ochiko is surprised with how nice the personal apartments are. It's bigger than my dorm room at UA. Do I really deserve something this nice? Don't worry about it too much, Oka. Most of the personal apartments are like this. Izuku's was. He even had a few pets he had caught during his hunts. Setsuna said casually. Ochiko on the other hand was backpedaling a bit at what she had said. Wait. How do you know what Deku-kun apartment was like? And that he had pets? Setsuna freezes up and looks back before coughing and hurrying to her room. Ochiko on the other hand decides to make sure nothing is going to happen to her crush and close friend. Later that evening, the doctors had reported that Izuku had woken up for a brief moment. He opened his eyes and looked around before speaking a bit. But he is not in the best place to take visitors. The lead medic said to those gathered outside of Izuku's apartment. While Bakugou wanted to go and interrogate him on what happened, he was willing to let it slide for now. But deep down he was glad that Izuku was alright. The others from 1A were also celebrating in their own ways. With the 1B group following suit. As much as we want to party and celebrate that Midoriya is alive and back, maybe we should save it for when he can come out with us. Kirishima said to those who were wanting to really celebrate. Most of the rest dispersed, with a few gathering together to plan for the next day's hunts. For 2 people however there was a different plan in mind. Once night had fallen, Setsuna quietly slipped out of her room and crept to Izuku's apartment. She was of course tailed by Ochiko, who was a bit suspicious about what the former lizard girl was up to with her friend. When Setsuna made it to Izuku's room, she tried to open the door quietly. However, it had been locked when the doctors left. This didn't deter the girl as she pulled out some tools and began to pick the lock on his door. This freaked Ochiko out even more and was walking up to confront Setsuna, who had just managed to open the door. "What are you doing?" Ochiko said in a loud whisper. Setsuna jumped and ended up falling face first through the open door. As she looked up and saw Ochiko there, she tried for a few seconds to build a cover story. She gave up after about a minute though, knowing that whatever she said Ochiko wouldn't believe. "Look before you rip into me, how about we talk inside? And maybe both try to talk about this, well calmly. Please." Setsuna said with a sheepish look on her face. While Ochiko wanted to take her as far away from Izuku as possible, she also knew that it wouldn't be the best idea to make a huge scene at this hour of the night. So, she relented with, "Fine. But you had better have an exceptionally good explanation." Setsuna nodded and both girls went into the spacious room. Once inside, Setsuna went over to look at Izuku. Achiko was a bit concerned, until she noticed that the green-haired girl was just looking at him with a mix of worry and concern. So, to refocus her attention, Achiko cleared her throat and sat down next to the fireplace. Setsuna knew she wasn't getting away from this, and she didn't want to look any crazier than she already did, so she went to sit in the chair next to Achiko. So then, should I start asking a lot of questions that may lead to a crazy reaction, or are you willing to tell me what is going on and how many times you've done this? Setsuna gasped a bit at what Achiko had said inside before starting her thoughts. This is actually only the third time I've done this. And only the second without him knowing. The first time I picked the lock on his door, it was after he had lost his key after a rat halos hunt that went south fast. Achiko nodded at that. She had heard from Izuku about that whole matter. Okay, but what about the second time? That was... well... Setsuna trailed off looking even more sheepish. Achiko decided to pressure her a bit more with a light threat about bringing this to the commander as well as the teachers. Setsuna panicked a bit at that before saying, "Oh no, it's not. Okay, it is that bad. And frankly, if any guy had done what I have, I would say they should be locked up. But can we wait a bit on that? Please." At Achiko's nod, Setsuna began telling her about where this had started and why she did this. "You already know that I had a bit of an obsession with Izuku for a while, right? Aoyama mentioned that was why he had been with Izuku while you were with the 1B girls in the ancient forest. Go on." Setsuna sighed before explaining that she had started to see Izuku as almost a savior-like figure for a while. That he was maybe the only one who could get them out of this dangerous, crazy world they found themselves in. At first I was just okay with staying by his side as a handler. And well, I'll be honest, I only did the second lockpick thing. After a really bad night terror. At the time there was no one in our room and I was freaking out. If anything, I really should have gone to someone else or even just knocked on his door rather than breaking in. At a stop to her story, Setsuna was starting to cry a bit. And while Achiko had a bit of sympathy for her, she didn't let it show. She needed to be stone-faced to get across how serious this was. Once Setsuna had relaxed a bit, she continued saying, "I didn't do anything, honest. Well, frankly, I was even surprised I was in his room in the first place. So I sat in one of the corners until I could relax and calm down. I ended up falling asleep there for a few hours, until I woke up to one of the early riser hunters walking by. I walked out and I was never planning to do that again, but..." Achiko decided to finish her sentence with, "After almost losing him in state we found him in, you wanted to be close to make sure he was fine." With an embarrassed and remorseful sigh, Setsuna nodded. Achiko took a deep breath before saying, "Okay, first things first, we are both going to leave here. Together. Since you're still dealing with some things, how about you stay in my room for a while?" Setsuna looked up at Achiko confused but agreed to her condition. The brunette continued with, "Second, we're going to talk to midnight in the morning. Got it? She may have some suggestions for dealing with some of these impulses. Because I hate to say it, even my Netta hasn't tried anything the whole time we've been here. And we all treat him with he's the worst when you have actually broken into someone else's house. This can't stand. We won't bring it up to the others, but we can't let this go." Setsuna nodded and knew she was right. For every one of the girls' complaints about Mineta, he hadn't actually tried to break in or sneak in anywhere. As far as they all knew, he had been strangely well behaved while they were there. "And third, I want you to help me with making sure Deku gets better." This one surprised Setsuna. As she was sure she would say to stay as far away from him as possible. "As much as I want you to stay away, in some ways this might help you come to terms with what has happened. I was planning to help him out if he needed it, while he is stuck in these casts. You can do the same, but I want to keep an eye on you. We can even stay in each other's rooms to make sure you try to do this again. Got it?" she said with a severe look in her eye. Setsuna was intimidated by that glare and agreed with no complaints. With a nod both were getting ready to leave when they heard, I had a feeling there was something more to Setsuna being so clingy to me, but I didn't realize it was quite that bad. They stopped and turned to see Izuku awake, though still looking exhausted. Setsuna reacted first, blushing brightly before turning and ducking into a corner of the room. Ochiko also blushed before asking, "How long have you been awake?" Izuku tried to adjust himself in the bed before saying, "About the time she mentioned breaking into my room after a night terror." With that said, Setsuna started groaning to herself while Ochiko sighed and said, "You could have said something sooner." I thought about it, but I think this was a matter I shouldn't say too much about. At least until you two hashed out what you had in mind. Which is why I'm saying something now. Setsuna had finally turned around and still had a blush before Izuku went on to speak his own mind on the matter. He didn't hate Setsuna for this but did agree that she had to be stopped. He wasn't going to set any more conditions, feeling that Ochiko had a good handle on what should be done for right now. And I'll be honest, I really could use the help. I can barely move to scratch any itch. Let alone trying to bath. The medicines the doctors used have made it to where I can use my arms to a point, but not much. And I can't walk at all. So, if you don't mind helping a little that would be great. Both girls chuckled a bit at his limitations and situation. With his point said, both agreed to help him a bit with a few of the daily needs. Izuku looked up at Setsuna, who had an ashamed look on her face, and said, "I had wanted to save you, but not by making you obsessed with me. I knew you may have been able to stand on your own again given time, but you needed to do that away from me." Setsuna looked down at her feet for a minute before looking up with a slight smile on her face. With a smile of his own Izuku says, "I'm sure you'll be able to stand for yourself again soon." Lizardy, at mention of her hero name, Setsuna smiles again thinking back on all the hero training they had done at UA and how she lead her class as best she could. "Thanks, Deku." Ochiko all the while had been smiling and was happy to see the matter be handled. "Well, we should get out of here, Deku-kun. I'll keep an eye on her. And we'll see you in the morning." At a good night from the two girls, Izuku was getting ready to go back to sleep when Setsuna decided to surprise both of them. Just before the door, she ran back to Izuku and kissed his cheek. This made Izuku blush as well as Ochiko. Setsuna herself had a light blush before she said good night again and walked out the door. "I may have to tie her down to really make sure she doesn't do anything," Ochiko said as she was leaving. Izuku on the other hand couldn't fall back asleep after what just happened. He eventually got some rest, but it took almost 2 hours before he was able to calm his mind down. The next day, Ochiko and Setsuna went to see Midnight to tell her about what had transpired. She agreed not to bring it up to anyone else for now, but she would be checking in on the green-haired girl a few more times. "I'm not saying you can't be interested, but we have to draw lines. I'll hear you out a few times and I can stay in your room if Ochiko is out on her own hunt. That or you could talk to your friends from 1B about it some more." Setsuna had nodded and agreed to meet with Midnight some to talk about some of her issues. It had been a week or so when Izuku was finally getting some more mobility back. Ochiko and Setsuna had been acting as nurses off and on during that time. Some others had helped as well. Tetsu and Kirishima had come at one point, bringing all kinds of food from the Meowscular chef. "Gotta eat a lot to fully recover, right, man?" Tetsu said with a big grin on his face. Aoyama on the other hand had also acted as a nurse much like the girls, saying he owed it to him for not being close when Izuku had fallen. "If I was closer, maybe I could have helped you get away from the fight between the two monsters." Izuku had tried to tell him it was fine, but his friend would not accept that. Momo and her team had stopped in as well to check in on Izuku and to congratulate him on killing 2 impressive monsters. "We've heard how impressive all of the monsters you fought could be. To face them all and still be alive. Even if you were unconscious and didn't strike the final blow on the rat halos. Izuku takes a bit of damage from that but laughs it off. Speaking of said kills, the commander had come in to discuss the materials of each You may not want to accept the credit for the Azure Rat Halo's kill, but most do agree you earned a right to decide what to do with the parts. Let alone your Odogaron and Kirin kills. Izuku sighs before thinking about the matter. He decides to ask for the Rat Halos to be made into armor. I had been looking at getting some new armor. And that might just what the, well, not doctor, but you know what I mean. A chuckle from all those present passed through the room. And after looking over some of the weapons that could be made from the other two beasts, he chose the indigo flash for the Kirin materials, and the nether salvo to made from the ebony Odogaron materials. With that done, the commander congratulated Izuku again for the kills and surviving when most thought he had died. During the time Setsuna and Ochako were taking care of Izuku, the former had made no new moves on him. She seemed content for the time to just keep an eye on him and be close. She was getting better again, and apparently Midnight was giving her lectures in between her talking about her problems and issues. Ochako on the other hand was glad to see Izuku getting better each day. It won't be too much longer, and you'll be out there again. Getting hurt all over again. Making me worry. She trailed off at that statement, and while Izuku was looking sheepish, Ochako was thinking more about him. Deku-kun, no. Izuku, listen. Izuku was surprised by Ochako using his given name but nodded to acknowledge he was still listening. Look, I've admired your strength and drive to be a hero. I guess you can say I. She had trouble getting out what she wanted to say at first, till Setsuna pats her on the back. At that, both on the bed look up at her and she smiles. With a bit more confidence, Ochako finishes saying what is on her mind. I've liked you for a while. I tried to push these feelings down. To do like you do and focus on my goal of being a hero. But during and after the joint training, they grew again. I was able to push them away for a while with everything we've been through here. But after thinking you had died or seeing how broken you were when we found you, I guess my feelings, they grew back again. Let alone seeing Setsuna kissing you after. Well, you know. Both Izuku and Setsuna chuckle at that. When Ochako is looking to Izuku for what he thinks, Izuku isn't entirely sure what to say at first. Setsuna decides to break the ice by admitting something to both of them. I'll admit, I didn't really have many thoughts or interest in Izuku before we came here. And just like Oka, mine have grown a lot. Though some of that may be due to other issues I'm having right now. I don't want you to say anything to mine. I'm not like Oka yet, who has had a thing for you for quite a while. But I know my own feelings are growing a bit. While Ochako is off-put at the statement that Setsuna has growing feelings for Izuku, said boy is coming to terms with the idea that two girls actually see him in a romantic light. He clears his throat before speaking his own piece. I'll admit that I've had some feelings for you, Urara. Ochako. And before all of the, no offense, stalkerish stuff I found about you, Setsuna, I was growing some feelings for you. Setsuna looks down ashamed again at her actions, while Ochako is blushing that Izuku had feelings for her as well. But in both cases, I guess you could say I put things aside to focus on other matters. And, to be honest, I don't really know what to think about some of your feelings. At least right now. I'll maybe have an answer eventually. But. Well. Relax, Izuku. I think we both get it. Setsuna says, still with smile on her face. Ochako nods and smiles as well, before saying, you may not be in the best place to answer us. But I know I'm at least glad I could admit my own feelings, as well as finding out you had some for me. You don't need to respond right now. For now, you should focus on getting better. At that, both again turn to leave, before Ochako gets the courage up and runs back to kiss Izuku's lips. Setsuna, not one to be outdone, comes back and does the same. After they both have left, Izuku is still swimming in his thoughts on what both had said. The next day Sig stops by and makes an offer to Izuku. Good to see you're doing better. Listen. I might know a way to help you heal a bit faster. You'll probably need a little help getting there, but I was thinking you could go to the hot springs in Celiana. There've been a few hunters who healed faster after visiting the springs and soaking for a few days. Might knock a few days off your recovery. At the mention of healing faster, Izuku likes the idea. But I don't know much about the area, but isn't it for some higher rank hunters? I mean, sure, I've got that new gear the commander had made, but Sig just lets out a big laugh before saying, true. You ain't enough of a hunter to have your own lodge there. But I do. At that, Izuku looks up and both Setsuna and Ochiko are looking the two men's way as well. Sig goes on to explain that he has hunted in the Hoarfrost Reach before but doesn't go there often, leaving his lodge often unattended. It's a little too cold over there for me. But that means you have a place to warm up and recover a bit more. So, what do you say? Izuku thinks it over a bit, before agreeing to Sig's offer. After the elder hunter says he'll make some arrangements to get him shipped up there, he leaves and Izuku is faced with a different dilemma. Both girls are looking at him intently, and he still can't get around too well. So, they may have to, or may basically offer their way along with the trip. He thinks about any of the others from his class, but they are all out on their own hunts. So, it looks like he's going to be stuck at a hot spring lodge with two girls who have feelings for him, and he has feelings for. And they will be for the most part alone. What could possibly go wrong? Izuku POV. While I do appreciate Sig setting up, I wonder how well this will turn out. As Ochiko and Setsuna are helping me load onto the airship to go to Celiana, I feel like more of an invalid. At least they let me carry some of my own bags up. My arms may not work their best right now, but I can move them and grip some things. While we're loading up, a few others have gathered to wish us, mostly me, well and a fast recovery. Midoriya. I wish a quick recovery, my friend. If these springs have as good of healing properties as I have heard, you should be back to hunting in no time. Ida says with a lot of exuberance, while chopping his hands. There are others who are wishing me the same, like Kirishima and Tetsutetsu. For some, they are checking in on the girls. Namely Kendo and Yanagi, talking with Setsuna to see how she is doing. Apparently, she told the two what she had done a few weeks ago, and they had taken to staying closer to her than before. There are some who feel like I'm getting special treatment, though for different reasons. Mina, Shiro, and Tsunatori are all jealous that we get to go on a hot springs trip. Oh, come on Midori. Couldn't you swing it that a few more of us could come too? We've been fighting or training non-stop. You get all the fun. Are a variety of things they all say. And though they're not saying it, I can feel my Neta and Kaminari's looks of jealousy that two girls from our class are taking care of me and I'll be on a private getaway with them. Though weirdly in the former's case it seems to be like a resigned jealousy. Like a thought of this is how it will always be. Personally, I hope not. I could do with a lot less body breaking, thank you very much. With a few more goodbyes and the Meowscular chef saying to give his regards to his cooking MSTR, we set off in the airship towards Celiana. While we're flying, I get a rundown of a few things from Elsia, who is going that way for a hunt. Celiana was a town we made after a hunter and handler duo noticed a massive migration of Legiana toward this region, as well as a strange change to the climate and attitude of a few other monsters. She went on to tell all three of us about the Hoarfrost Reach, the area around Celiana, which had an imposing set of monsters roaming as well. From moose-like Banbaro wyverns to the fish-like ice swimmer, Beodatus. Even a few new elder dragon species. The main one was Velcana, a powerful ice dragon. There were a few who thought it was what was drawing the Legiana to the Reach. But there was a different dragon we found that was a threat. Luckily, you don't have to worry about that one right now. While the three students are a bit worried about the region they are heading to, Alcia's assurance makes them worry less. At least I hope not. She says a little later, making the teens sweat a bit more. Once we land though, myself and the girls are more caught up in the beauty of the snow-covered landscape around them. Alcia chuckles a bit before telling us to move out of the way for the resource transporters. We do with a bit of a blush given how distracted we had been at the new sights. I'm still in a wheelchair, so Setsuna has to push me out of the way. Once we are on the main set of roads, the field team leader comes up to greet us. Hey there, Izuku. I had what you managed to take down. Not only that, but how badly you got the CRP kicked out of you. At the former statement, I'm happy and embarrassed that those around here had heard and were impressed. The later though, just reminds me more of where I'm stuck at right now. Sorry, didn't mean to bring you down. It still is impressive. The FTL says, most likely noticing my downtrodden face. He then offers to show all of us around, while Alcia heads out for her hunt. I notice that the setup of Celiana is different compared to Astria, so I ask him about it. Yeah, they had more to work with when it came to room over here. Back in Astria, they had to build around the ancient tree. Here though, we had more space to grow out a bit with. Plus, the springs here weren't ones that the monsters wanted to be close to. They stuck to a few others out in the reach. He explains as we walk past the steamworks which provide heat and power to the whole town. He points out that there are springs and similar places in the gathering hub here, including saunas and foot baths. The later might be nice once I can at least move around for myself again. Not long after he showed us to where Sig's lodge is, and once we stepped inside we were all dropping our jaws. The lodge had an impressive rustic look to the furnishings. The outside looked out onto snow-capped peaks and trees, with what looked like a gazebo to sit under. FTL picked up my chair to lower me down to the main floor, and it was all so warm and inviting in the room. Setsuna went down a hall off to the side and saw Sig's own version of the pond and aquarium like from my apartment back in Astria. Ochiko on the other hand was looking at the personal hot spring and feeling the warm waters. Alright then. The house has some food here you can cook up. Obviously, the gazebo and spring are free to use. Maybe you could feed a few of the extra pets Sig has here. I'm getting tired of doing it for him. Rest up, Izuku. I'm betting the commander is wanting you back in action soon. With the FTL gone, the three from UA now have decided to take some time and get comfortable in the new space. Izuku decides to sit out in the spring for a while to relax and heal. Both girls offer to help him, but he points out that, I'm going to bathe, so, can I get a bit of privacy? They both blush and decide to head out and look around the town a bit after they make sure Izuku is okay. While they are all used to the custom of bathing completely NDE, FTL explained that most of them wore an easily dryable set of pants while in the baths. The girls do help him out of his shirt when Izuku is having trouble moving. He was able to get the pants on with little issue, but he still needed help getting to the spring. As he did, he let out a relieved and relaxed sigh. Oh yeah. Oh, this feels amazing. Given they don't bath NDE, you girls could come in. Once he said that though, Izuku rapidly opened up his eyes in shock. And when he turned back to the girls, Ochiko was turned away with a huge blush across her face. Setsuna, while still blushing, just smiled coyly before saying, so you want us to join, you know? As she was saying that, she was leaning down with her shirt showing a bit of cleavage. Izuku then quickly, or at least as quickly as he could, backed away into the spring before diving underwater. Setsuna just laughed at his reaction before saying to Ochiko, let's head out and look around town a bit. Just because Izuku is stuck here doesn't mean we can't look around a little. Ochiko's blush had started to fade, and she agreed. Once they had left, Izuku came back up and once again just relaxed in the water. For the girls though, they took to exploring parts of the town, even stopping in at the canteen to meet the Grandmaster chef. Nayo, it is good to see some new faces near. I heard about the boy. He did well, considering his condition. Near you go, Nairis. Take these and a few extra for Izuku. It'll help him heal. After trying a bit of her food, both girls could see why she taught the Meowscular chef. And that she hadn't taught him everything she knew. Man, those manju she made were on a whole different level. And they were so warm. Ochiko said as they were leaving the canteen. Setsuna agreed and they decided to check out the gathering hub next. When they step in they are again impressed by the size of the place. He wasn't kidding when they said they had more space to work with. This is much bigger compared to the gathering hub in Astria. Setsuna said as they looked around. They could see a few folk stumbling out of what appeared to be the sauna room and could see the foot baths near the canteen in central area. Then they saw the huge spring that overlooked the hoarfrost reach and the number of people in it. I guess they weren't kidding about the fact everyone wears that gear in the baths. Ochiko says as they look and see men and women wearing similar bathing clothes. The women have a wrap around their chests, but that is the only difference. We should bring Deku-kun here at some point. Maybe once his arms heal. Ochiko says before the two head back to Sig's lodge. When they get back though, they are surprised that Izuku isn't at least sitting next to the gazebo. Instead, they find him under the water. Izuku. Deku-kun, both shout as they grab him and pull him out. When they notice he isn't breathing too well, Ochiko starts CPR and after 2 rounds Izuku starts coughing. Once he has calmed down, he asks, "What happened?" Setsuna though is furious and tells him, "What happened? Well, let's start with you managed to pass out in the bath, you sank down and almost drowned, and you nearly gave both of us a heart attack." Izuku is a bit disappointed with himself and tad scared of Setsuna after she had said all of that. Ochiko is also mad and gives him a lecture about staying too long in the baths. They both then lift Izuku up and place him in bed, before Setsuna says, "We are not leaving you alone again. One of us will stay with you until you can move for yourself. And even then, we probably will stay close." Izuku just nods and lays back to enjoy the comfortable bed. But then he realizes something. There's only one bed here. Su. At that both girls blush before Ochiko says, "I guess we could sleep on the couches." Or. Setsuna understands where she is going and says, "As long as we all keep some space, I don't think there would be a problem with us sharing the bed. Right?" She looks between each with a bit of a blush. They decided to table the discussion for later, and the girls shared some of what the grandmother chef sent with them. Izuku offered to help the girls with cooking since he was feeling better. But he still couldn't stand for very long, so they stopped him. After dinner, the girls decided to just take the sofas for the time being. Izuku wants to disagree and says he'll take the sofa. Until they both point out he can still barely move. This continues for about 2 days, with the girls taking the sofas or cuddling up together. Izuku on the other hand has started to be able to move more and more. He can finally use both of his arms and his legs and ribs have healed enough he doesn't need the wheelchair. Sig wasn't kidding about the healing potential here. "I feel like some of my old injuries are even getting better." They are. "The scars on your right arm are fading really fast. Too bad we don't have this back in our world, huh?" Ochiko says with a chuckle. At the mention of their old world though, all of them feel saddened. Wondering if they will ever get home. With a cough, Izuku says, "How about we check out the gathering hub? I've been wanting to see it after what you two said." With a smile and a nod from both, they get Izuku his crutches and help him walk to the hub from the nearby tunnel. When they made it to the hub, there were fewer hunters around. After eating a hearty meal from the canteen, they asked one of the receptionists what was going on. "There's a big storm coming in. Most of the hunters have been called back. Even the tracker has come in. You'd best get ready to bundle up tonight." With that said, they all headed back to close up the large door to the lodge. "Too bad we won't be able to look out on the mountain tonight. But we'll get ready for the cold," Izuku said as the girls closed the door, and he put some more wood on the fire. He had put a backpack on and loaded up as much firewood as he could into it. With the door closed, they were all feeling a bit warmer. Until they heard the blizzard set in. Even with the door shut and the fireplace roaring, they could still feel a bit of cold around the living room. After they ate at the table, Izuku had noticed something. The sofas were colder compared to other parts of the room. Even the one that was next to the fireplace wasn't as warm as the area near the bed. With a deep breath, he caught both girls and said, "I think you two should sleep in the bed tonight. I can sleep elsewhere." Both girls had an idea on why he was offering that and instead told him, "No. We'll all sleep in the bed. I know you want to be a gentleman with this, but it is way too cold tonight. We'll be better off together." Izuku is still a bit shy but knows they both have a good point. Once they were all ready for bed, they piled in together under the covers. Even though they were all still dressed, they could feel each other fairly intimately. Izuku noticing more of how ample both girls' chests were, as well as how nice it felt with both of them against him. For the girls, Setsuna was gently feeling up Izuku's abs, while Achiko had a hand on his pecs. All three were blushing, but they didn't say anything at first. As they were starting to relax into each other, both girls' hand went lower and then blushed even more. Though not as much as Izuku, who had turned as red as a tomato. Both girls looked up at him and had small smiles each. "Well, it is flattering to know you definitely are interested," Setsuna said with a teasing smirk. Izuku on the other hand is trying to come up with an excuse, but then both girls get up a bit and kiss him again. They only kiss him once before Achiko says, "I know we're being selfish, Izuku. But both of us do really care for you. And not just physically. Neither of us were going to ask for an answer, but we do have one other thing to say to you. I don't think either of us would be opposed to all of us being together. What about you? I know I don't mind. After all this time with Oka, I've grown to see what you love about her. And don't deny it. I've seen some that look you give her. And she has caught you looking at me the same way. So. What do you say?" Izuku isn't sure what to think about all of this matter. But he does know where his feelings lead. He has liked Achiko since about the entrance exam, but over the weeks of working intimately with Setsuna his feelings had grown for her as well. And even though he doesn't know what to say, he knows what his instincts are telling him to do. He grabs them both and pulls them into a tight hug, before kissing both of them. No more words are exchanged during the night. But plenty of other actions tell all. Bakugou POV. Well, at least I'm starting to catch up to Deku. I finally got approval to head to the Coral Highlands. Though I'm not the only one. All of Icy Hot's team have as well. Let alone the fact, Kirishima and Pikachu have as well. When we explore around a bit I notice more and more of how easy it would be to get lost. It's no wonder they couldn't find Deku right away. With all these winds and pitfalls, you have dozens of possibilities on where people could end up. No joke, man. Though that does make Midoriya surviving it all the more manly. I roll my eyes at his manly statement, but I can't deny it. It always annoys me, but he really is the embodiment of everything we're supposed to strive for as heroes. Though I'll admit my biggest problem is just that I can't understand how he can have the greatest power in the world and still put others first. It's totally contrary to everything we are as people with quirks. But after being here, maybe the problem is the quirks themselves. I've talked about this some with Kirishima and he has agreed to a point. Yeah, I can see it. Didn't know Midoriya was that much of a late bloomer, but I guess it makes sense. I don't think I could understand it to a point either. Especially with just how powerful he is now. But maybe that is why he's a better embodiment of a hero. He knows what it's like to be powerless. To feel weak. Speaking of, you've got a lot of other issues, man. You might want to talk with Hound Dog if we ever get back. While I had scoffed a bit at what he had said, I knew he was right. He gave me a bit of a speech of remembering he favorite hero Red Riot, and what the guy embodied to him. Maybe that is some of where my problem lies too. I had only focused on the fact that All Might was winning all of his fights on TV. And that was all I saw. Deku on the other hand was more impressed with his rescues that I never watched. While I've been thinking on this and we've been scouting around, I can hear Pikachu pouting behind us. So I grumble before asking what his problem is. Midoriya has 2 hot girls taking care of him at a hot spring resort basically. And I've seen the way they both look at him at times. You'd have to be blind to not notice Uraraka's crush, and Tokaichi has been sticking to him for weeks. Something is going to happen with them while they are over there. I just know it. I roll my eyes before saying, it'll be a cold day in hell when Deku decides to do anything with either one of those two. Kirishima backs me up by saying, yeah man, this is Midoriya we're talking about. Sure, he may be interested, but he won't do anything. He's too nice and, well, frankly gentlemanly to do anything. Come on, we've got to keep scouting. I have to agree with him. There's no way Deku would ever get laid in this lifetime. Izuku POV. OSHT. I wasn't fully thinking when I answered both of the girls last night. But thinking about it, no, it could be a different problem. As I'm sitting up in the bed, I'm working a few different pains out of my body. I hadn't expected what happened last night to happen, but I'm complaining for a few reasons. As both Ochako and Setsuna are both laying next to me, snoring a bit, I manage to move to the foot of the bed and try to stand. It takes a minute, but I can finally walk for the most part with little pain. There's still some, but that is more of a pins and needles pain from getting your nerves functioning again. I decide to try cooking a bit before the other two wake up. My mind is still swimming though at the fact both want to be with me, and don't mind sharing. I'm not used to this at all after what I had grown up with. But I do care for both of them, so I'll try to do right by them. Well, I'm not complaining about you being able to move again. Let alone that it seems like you're making breakfast. I turn and see Setsuna sitting up and holding the covers over her chest. I blush a bit at this and she laughs it off. Ochako starts waking up too, and when she remembers what we did dives back under the covers with a groan. Once she finally comes out, we talk a bit more and set up some ideas on where to go with this possible relationship. Also, let's just keep this between us for now. Please. I don't want the extra attention right away. I ask them both, who agree before coming over to kiss me again. I'm guessing I have a dopey look on my face because they are both laughing again. This will take some getting used to. When Izuku and the girls woke up the next morning, they each had their own thoughts about what had happened. While Izuku was happy and surprised at even himself at where he went with the matter, he didn't really regret it. He cared about both of them, and he felt there was a good chance his feelings could grow more with time. But for today he had something in mind to help them feel a bit closer. In Ochiko's mind she was both really happy that Izuku liked her back, but is also amazed that they had all jumped rather quickly to section. She was a bit afraid that their relationship might not continue the same way if all side were just in this for section. And Setsuna was just happy to have confirmed her own feelings. For a while after admitting that she may have just been enamored or looking to Izuku as a savior, she was afraid what she thought might be feelings of love or similar were not real. But during the 2 weeks of taking care of Izuku and then their time in Celiana, she could tell she was growing true feelings of affection and maybe love for her fellow greenette. And the way he used his tongue and technique felt amazing. She thought to herself with a smile. With the end of the blizzard during the night, there was a fresh layer of snow everywhere. With the door to the lodge open, the three from UA could look out onto a pristine and appealing sight. That was when Izuku broached his thought. Listen, we kinda jumped the gun a bit with the relationship. But I do want to do something at least semi-date-like. Even if we're stuck here. I had heard from the FTL that there are a few areas that are as appealing as this view and would be great to, well, sled or ski on, as well as maybe have a semi-picnic. At saying that, both girls were surprised but also happy he was thinking about that as well. But can you even move at all, Deku-kun? At least well enough to get to some of these places? Ochako asked. Izuku smiled at her before dropping down to the floor and doing a few push-ups. Once he was done, he said, I'm not thinking on hunting. There's plenty of scouting and other types of missions. Besides, this might help you too, Setsuna. Help you feel a little less afraid of the world we live in now. When he addressed said girl, he had a warm smile that almost made her melt where she stood. After a quick teasing jab about making her want to take him to bed again, she agreed and asked if they could do it tomorrow. No, I think today might be the best day for it. With the sun out and the fresh snow everywhere, it would be appealing. Both thought about it before agreeing with him. With their plan set, Izuku got ready with his new set of Azure Alpha Rat Halos armor, while Achiko had her Luma Alpha armor, and while Setsuna didn't have her own armor, Achiko lent her the Pukei Beta armor she had. With that done, they went out into Celiana. There were already a few hunters milling about. They went over to the meeting room and saw the FTL sitting and going over maps on the table. Hey Izuku. Good to see you moving. Guess the springs did you a lot of good. But why are you all in hunter gear? When he asked that, Izuku went on to explain that they wanted to check out the Hoarfrost Reach. You are not healed up enough, Izuku. And the girls last time I checked don't even have the clearance for the Elder Recesses. I know you got the clearance after what you survived, but that was for when you had healed. The FTL explained with a severe look on his face. Setsuna though was the one to come up and say, we weren't thinking on hunting. Just exploring and maybe checking out a few areas you had said are incredible sights. The last part she said with a sheepish look on her face. FTL isn't too sure about the idea, but knows it could do some good to get some ideas on what else could be happening. Especially after hearing that ones like the Nargacuga and others were back around Astra. With a sigh, FTL says, alright. Just reconnaissance. Izuku, I'm going to advise you use a shield or defensive weapon just in case. What about you two? Setsuna says she would use the light bow gun to cover both, while Achiko says she'll use her new double blades for some extra damage. With that said, the three head off to the canteen to get a base meal. It is so good to see NYU Izuku Nayari. I'll cook up a special meal, so you'll feel strong enough to explore the reach a bit. The Grammy-Oster chef says as the kids settle in for a hearty meal. Once they were done, they had planned to gather up some food from both the camp and along the way to make their own outdoor lunch. But Grammy-Oster surprised them by giving them a special pack that would keep for a while and have some good warm meals and drinks for them to have later. She then winks at them, before quietly saying, hopefully this little date with your two girls would go well. This makes the three blush, but they cough a bit before heading out. Once they had walked out to the first camp, Izuku was the first to question how the Grammy-Oster knew what was going on. Setsuna said with a laugh, she probably could smell all of us on each other. Might have been a giveaway. While Achiko is blushing again, Izuku just facepalms thinking that they've already given away that they were all trying to have a relationship together. But with that out of the way, the three make their way through parts of the reach. There didn't seem to be many monsters out at the current time, but they still kept their guard up. One of the first beasts they all saw, was a herd of popos lumbering around. They all thought the littlest one looked extra adorable, as it waddled through the snow. Izuku surprised the girls by bringing out a camera he had picked up at the supply cache. Get in close and we'll try to take a picture next to them. He said before gently walking over to the big beasts. They seemed unsure about the humans near them, but when Izuku lifted up some herbs, a few sniffed his hand before eating out of it. When the little one came over, Izuku helped Setsuna get comfortable and helped her relax into petting it. Once that was done, he took a picture of both of the girls petting the young popo. When they were done playing with the popo, they walked along until they made it to a spring area. There was a variety of animals swimming in the water, but that wasn't what the three came there for. There were also some amazing ice formations coming from the cliffs above. Other areas had small wildlife running around, and all three took advantage of the camera they had to record what they thought looked cool. Izuku personally found the Antica to be impressive species, and the other small animal species around. When they reached the central springs, the three decided the area was comfortable enough for the lunch the Grammy-Oster had prepared. It had been a few hours since they ate at the canteen and they were burning a fair number of calories moving around in the snow. When they opened the pack up, the steam, scents and warmth from the food was almost enough to set them into a food coma. And they hadn't even eaten it yet. Man, I can see why the Meowscular chef was impressed with her cooking and took to learning from her. This stuff is incredible. And she knew just how each of us likes the seasoning. Achiko said with happy puffed up cheeks. Izuku and Setsuna nodded, with the former curious about the meats used to make the katsudon in the lunch. And the latter was enjoying the warm drinks provided. After a few minutes, Izuku decided to bring up something he was thinking about. Is this working? As far as a date goes? I'm not really sure about this myself, and I don't want to seem like I don't care, Anne. Before Izuku can get lost in his worries and thoughts, Setsuna comes up and kisses him. Once he has shook off the shock, both her and Achiko confirm, yes. This has been pretty nice for a date so far. It doesn't have to be complicated or fancy. We both just like being with you and spending time together. With that said, Izuku relaxes a bit before saying they still had some other places to check out. Once their lunch was done, they packed up and headed to explore some of the upper regions of the reach. After getting some shots of the view from the top of the ice sheet, they headed toward an interesting region that the tracker had found. From her report, not many large wyverns seemed to explore the area. Even Beryths didn't come into the place, so it was somewhat safe. This was where Izuku wanted to visit. He then used his shield as a sled and asked the girls to jump on. Seriously? Setsuna said before Achiko happily said, when's the last time you really went sledding? Come on. Let's have a bit of fun. Setsuna just shrugged and got on behind Izuku, while Achiko sat in front of him. While a bit embarrassed by the position, he still managed to start them down the hill. They all enjoyed the rush as they moved past the trees and rocks. They even got a pair of scares thanks to, 1, launching off a rock and taking to the air for a bit. And 2, accidentally crashing through a big snowbank that they thought was a rock. But all in all, they had some good fun playing in the snow. At the bottom they even got into a 3-way snowball fight. After the fight, they could see the sun starting to wane a bit in the sky. Well, this was a fun day. We should do this again. Izuku said with a big smile on his face. The girls mirrored this and agreed, before standing up to brush themselves off. All of a sudden, they heard a yelping cry nearby. What was that? Achiko asked looking around. Neither of the other two know, but Izuku says one thing that doesn't surprise either girl. We need to check it out. Someone may need help. Izuku says with a determined look on his face. So with a nod from the girls, all three head off in the direction of the sound. When they arrive, they see a pack of wolves circling an area. At the center is a smaller dog-like beast, that already seems injured. For a minute none of the hunters know what to do. But Izuku does something completely true to his nature. He starts running toward the injured dog beast and right as a wolf is leaping to pounce on it, he intercepts it with his shield and lance. I'm not really surprised. Achiko says with a smile and Setsuna agrees by saying, I had a feeling he'd jump in first. Let's back him up. As she says this, Setsuna draws her bow gun and fires a few shots to pepper the pack. Achiko is running down as well and when she gets close, she starts slashing at the wolves as fast as she can. She even performs a few acrobatic cuts, making her seem like a blade dancer with her dual blades. This mesmerizes Izuku for a moment and doesn't notice when a wolf is right on top of him. But he gets saved by his other partner. Don't lose focus, Izu. I'm not losing you again. Setsuna shouts as she fires off shot after shot. Even taking down one wolf with one bullet thanks to a headshot. Izuku on the other hand decides to focus more on protecting the dog and attracting the attention of the wolves. He smacks his shield with his lance and shouts at the beasts. They turn back from their attacking and dodging of Achiko's strikes and rush at Izuku, who blocks the first few hits, before winding up a counter-strike that lands. After about 10 minutes of fighting, the three have defeated all of the wolves that were attacking the dog. With that done they check on the dog beast that had been attacked. It was bigger than most dogs from their world, but Achiko notes something quickly. This one looks like he's just a pup. They were attacking little one like this? She says with sympathy. Izuku and Setsuna take to bandaging up the dog's injuries. With Setsuna joking that, for once it's not Izuku I'm having to patch up after a fight. The pup still looks like it can't move much but they figure they can bring it back with them. It had seemed comfortable around humans. They then start processing the wolves to use their pelts for later. With that done and the pelts and meat gathered, they called for a couple menros to take them back to Celiana. Izuku was carrying the dog and had 2 menros to carry them. When they get back to base, FTL is the first to greet them. He takes note of the dog in Izuku's arms but puts it aside for now. Can you give me a report on what happened? Yes sir. Izuku said after leaving the dog with a few wildlife researchers. The 3 went on to explain that they hadn't seen too many wyverns in the area. As well there was no indication of any of the larger beasts wandering their usual haunts. No Beryths. No Tigrex. Not even a Banbaro or Beodatus. It's like they all just vanished. Setsuna explained with a bit of confusion. This also concerns the wildlife researchers. If the biggest beasts have all left that could have repercussions on the whole area. FTL just HMS before asking about the canine they found. So what's with the young Palamute? Where did you find that? Ochiko coughed before explaining. But avoiding the fact they had been taking some time out and just having fun. We went up to the top of the ice ridge and slid down to the area the tracker had mentioned. The place that most of the bigger monster tend to avoid. While we were resting, we hear an animal cry out and went to investigate. We saw the young Palamute you called it? Being attacked by wolves. Izuku was the first to jump in and protect the pup. After that we all started fighting the pack. She then said they made sure to stabilize the Palamute and thought they could help it heal in the town. Indeed we can. Didn't think I'd see a young Palamute out this way though. Most are found around a different section of the New World. It's only slightly more explored than these regions. The students are confused at what he's talking about but the FTL pushes it aside and says that they'll take care of it for now. With that done, the 3 decide to retire for the evening. But not before Izuku goes over to check on the Palamute pup. When the 3 get there, the big dog seems to light up at their presence. The head researcher says, that's a good sign. How about we let you 3 or 1 keep it? It seems more attached to you boy than the others. It looks like being around you would do good for its recovery. Izuku is surprised but lights up at the canine staying with him. The researcher explained that Palamutes were good companions to have on a hunt. Being able to fight like a palico to a point. And I've heard that some in Camera Village ride their beasts to get around the hunting grounds. When this one grows up a bit, he could be a big help with your hunts. All 3 found that interesting, but Ochiko was mostly enamored with how cute the white dash, red, and gray-haired pup looked. And how sweet and happy he was wagging his tail constantly. They went back to Sig's lodge with the Palamute following them. They all changed out of their armor and Setsuna was the first to say, I don't know about you 2, or 3, but I could use a long soak in the springs. You 2 want to join? Normally Izuku would be stuttering and blushing up a storm, but he takes it in stride and agrees. The wounds have closed up on you 2 boy. Hop in with us. He says to the new companion to them. After they had all changed, they each sat down in the water and were happily relaxing. The Palamute pup also soaked as well, swimming around in the water. He might smell a little funny, but I agree it could do him some good. Just like it did you. Ochiko says happily. After about 10 minutes soaking, Izuku decides to ask, did both of you have fun today? I mean aside from the wolf fight at the end, I thought the date went pretty well. Do you agree? He says this with a sheepish look on his face. Both girls know he's still a bit nervous but know a good way to put him at ease. They smile before they each individually gives him a hug, and a quick kiss to the lips. Things might not have gone to plan, but really nothing is ever perfect. And I'd say that is part of what made the whole outing perfect. Setsuna says with a gentle smile. Ochiko chimes in with, you don't have to worry about trying to show that you can be the best boyfriend to both of us. You can often do more than trying to be someone you're not. Izuku sighs with a smile before asking, how did I get lucky enough to have two girls who care about me this much and I won't say love yet, but care deeply about as well in this life. After the four had gotten out of the bath, they each worked together to cook up a meal and some hearty food for the palamute. It's inconvenient he doesn't have a name, right? What should we call him? Ochiko asks, and all of them think for a while on it. Izuku takes a closer look at him and notices the red fur on his forehead forms a red sun with a white face. He smiles before saying, how about Akatsuki? The Red Dawn. Like our homeland? They look down and agree, saying it seems to fit him well. With the day done and all four extremely exhausted, they head for bed. Izuku doesn't say anything when both girls curl up next to him. Then Akatsuki jumps up on the foot of the bed and curls up to sleep with them. The next day is the last day that Sig had set up for Izuku to stay in Ciliana. So, the three, with Akatsuki following along, just decide to wander around the town for a while. FTL had called them over and noted that some other hunters had seen at least a Banbaro returning to the Reach. It might have just been temporary. Velkhana and some other elder dragons might have whipped up the storm and the wyverns were hiding out until they passed. So hopefully we have nothing to worry about. Izuku nods at this and is showing how happy he is quite obviously. When questioned about it, he just says he is glad to be moving around again. And not stuck in a wheelchair or bed. This is mostly true, but the girls know the bigger reason. They all help a bit at the steam works and later have a good meal and soak in the gathering hub. With their last day in Ciliana passing, they all enjoy the evening out in the gazebo looking out on the stars and snow-capped peaks. When they settle in for the night, Setsuna decides to get frisky. By saying, time for round 2 Izuku while straddling him. While not the best sleep night for the trio, they all do enjoy their last night in Ciliana. While they were away, the rest of the group from UA has been progressing as best they can. Most of them had now been cleared for the Coral Highlands and Rotten Vale. But only the teachers were approved for going into the Elders' recess. Bakugou was still angry at the fact Izuku was quite a bit ahead of him in terms of hunter rank. They had heard that Izuku had been cleared for the recess and that he had even gone on a scouting mission around the Hoarfrost Reach. A place not even the teachers were allowed to hunt or explore. For some though, they were just more and more amazed by the sights and relationship of the monsters to the environment. In the Rotten Vale, Momo and her team were exploring around. While they each were bothered by the smell and other elements, they were interested in its function. So, the monsters, especially elder dragons, die in places like this. As their bodies break down, they provide nutrients and energy for the creatures here, and some of that floats or is transferred up to the Coral Highlands. A truly fascinating relationship. Momo commented as they were following a rataban and noticing the marks of a betelgeuse around the upper areas. At the same time Tsuyu and Shoji were working their way around the lower areas of the highlands. Noting the strange variety of fish and fish-like beasts around the area. This place is incredible. And serene-like, with the only sound being that gentle trickle of water. Shoji said. Tsuyu agreed with him and said, yeah. I'm glad we took this quieter job of scouting areas. Fighting monsters gets tiring after a while. Many of the UA hunters had the same thoughts as they were exploring the regions. The teachers were also amazed at the beauty of the Elders' recess and the monsters wandering around the area. They were terrified though when they saw not only Nergigant, but also a behemoth and Kushala Daora fighting each other. Midnight was the first to comment, and we thought we were great heroes and fighters. If this is some of what these hunters face, then they have us beat by a mile for fighting monsters. Aizawa agreed but also acknowledged that the hunters couldn't handle smaller threats. Their gear is too bulky for fighting small-time crooks and thugs. It's why most of us from UA could handle the small monsters better. We're used to fighting monsters our same size. Snipe and Mike give quiet nods as they slipped away to avoid the Elder Dragon free-for-all. When the three from Ciliana returned to Astria, there was a big group waiting for them. Kirishima and Ida were the first to greet Izuku and congratulate him on recovering. Itsuka and Yui were the main ones to go up and hug Setsuna, checking to make sure she was alright. Toru and Mina were the first to hug Ochiko and quickly gushed when they saw Akatsuki. "What is that big, sweet pup there?" Mina asked loudly. Izuku went over and scratched under the Palamute's jaw before gently introducing him. "This is Akatsuki. He's a canine we found and saved in the Hoarfrost Reach. He's apparently just a pup, so I'm taking care of him for now," Izuku said, and then both hard-headed students quickly call out "manly," at the fact even still recovering he went in to save someone. So with that Kirishima announces, "Hey everybody. Let's party tonight to celebrate Midoriya's recovery and a new friend for us and Astria." With a quick rousing cheer, the party at the canteen gets underway. The Meowscular chef happy to oblige. After a few hours of happy eating, drinking, and dancing around, telling stories and talking about what to do next. When the party started to wind down, the three lovers slipped away. While they had thought about sleeping together, they all agreed to stay away and head back to their own apartments. But before Izuku leaves for his big apartment, he quickly catches both girls and kisses them both. The girls blush happily and tell him goodnight. Unfortunately, they were spotted by Ojiro, Toru, Pony and Manga. "Should we say something?" Pony asks, but Toru just says they should keep it to themselves for now. With everyone relaxing and the party finishing up, everyone heads for home to prep for the next day. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 3. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author HanBaron on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.